I really hate it when I'm playing a game that I own. I'm having a moderately decent game and I tilt. I hate it. It bothers me on a level I can't explain because I want to say to that tilt mechanism, I own you. I can disable you. How dare you tilt me? So that's what I've been dealing with tonight. It's episode 55 of Coast to Coast Pinball. Let's go. I know. Tilt's part of the game. Whatever. Welcome to Coast Pinball. My name is Nate Shivers. This is a podcast. It's a commentary. I'm a man out of quarters. How are we doing tonight? Episode 55, January 7th, 2014. It is a Tuesday night here in San Diego, and while the polar vortex is out there crushing my friends in the Midwest and in the Northeast, it is still 62 degrees here in San Diego after the sun has gone down. So at least I got that going for me. What's going on out there? I just watched an interview with one George Gomez from CES, which is the Consumer Electronics Show that is currently taking place in Las Vegas. And George was interviewed by some woman holding a lavalier microphone in her hand, which was obnoxious. And I don't know that there was anything groundbreaking at all in the interview, but I will give you the brief talking points from George. I think George, by the way, is a great spokesperson for Stern Pinball. He's likable, he's smart, he's got a good demeanor about him. I think that's a good thing that he's kind of the figurehead going forward on a lot of levels. So one thing, that the interviewer did ask was, about the technology side of pinball and what's going on with Stern. And George was quick to point out that they were talking about Star Trek. There's a Star Trek game right behind them. That was really the old technology and board set and hardware set, I guess is what he called it, that they're using, and that the new hardware set is about to be announced, about to be released. So it kind of sounds to me like Mustang is going to be the start of the new hardware set. He said there'd be new display things, is a quote, and some behind the scenes things going on. He talked a little bit about connectivity with pinball machines and how they would like to be able to at least compare scores remotely and then eventually have tournaments going on remotely. And I think we knew that was coming, and I think that's going to be a big deal in pinball over the next few years, is connected machines, and so that I can battle someone in Northern California or someone in Florida or someone in Finland, maybe, in pinball. Obviously, location pinball will be better for that, so that we don't have home players, I don't know, disabling tilt bobbins or something like that. But you get the idea. It really opens up the world of competition and just comparing scores and playing against each other. Pretty cool thought of connective pinball, and we've seen a little bit of that, but I think there's a lot more coming down the road. For sure. He kind of threw out some of the catchphrases that Gary Stern's famous for, obviously, the beercades and the collector's market. And he said, he did indeed say we're going through a pinball renaissance, and he believes Stern has been a big part of why that's happened. And I don't know. It was kind of funny hearing him say that because, yes, Stern has been a big part of the pinball renaissance or resurgence, or whatever you want to call it. But did they cause it, or were they just the ones there as it was happening? Part of me feels like the pinball renaissance was happening either way. Part of me thinks if there was nobody building new games, we still would have had this giant increase in pricing and players coming to play on location if people are still putting games out. But then part of me also does have to admit that watching the rush to buy the limited edition games and the kind of the madness that we all have when we're waiting for pictures of whatever the new game is and how exciting it is, that is definitely helping fuel the fire of said renaissance, and Stern definitely is that. He thought it was technology and being focused on great products, but I don't know that they've really. I mean, I like Stern. I try to be pretty forgiving of Stern, and I'm glad they're there. And I think that what that they've stayed in business is a testament of hard work and dedication to this hobby and their business. I don't know that the games that they have produced have necessarily been the big fuel as much as an interest in the hobby in general, and then the games sort of fit in. I think that there have been definite times where the games may have actually hurt it a little bit. I don't know. I feel a little funny saying that because I know there's a few people at Stern listening right now, and I don't want to insult anybody because I'm a big fan. I like a lot of the games, but I don't know that Stern's designs and games is exactly pushing pinball forward or propelling pinball forward. And maybe George wasn't saying that. I think they can do more. They're starting to do more. I think the recent releases have really helped to do more. But I think it's going to be really good if we get some more competition for them, and it really drives them to always look farther and try and, progress with each release and bring to the table the absolute best that they can, because I think sometimes it's been a little stagnant. And as far as progressing with technology and whatnot, it's been very stagnant. I mean, nobody can argue that. They've been building very basic games. Some of them very good, but very basic games for the past 10 years. And that's and it's worked for them. They're there, they're standing, that's a good thing. So kudos to them, and I wish them the best of luck. And I can't wait to see Mustang and see what they've got going, and I can't wait to see what comes after Mustang. So that was kind of an interesting little tidbit that popped up as far as some forum static type stuff tonight. This podcast won an award. We have a listener to this podcast whose name is Ryan, and he goes mostly by his screen name on forums Spitfire 1500, and he emailed me a few weeks ago to let me know that Coast2Coast Pinball won an award. He runs a website, and I want to get this exactly right. He runs a website and a podcast. All right, Classic Console Gamer News. And I've listened to a couple of Ryan's episodes, and I like Ryan's voice. Ryan sounds like a buddy of mine who we're just hanging out, playing video games on the floor, and just chatting about the world. He's got a real likable sort of... I wish I had a good adjective here to describe Ryan. It's homey feeling. It's comfortable. I like the way he talks, and so he did an award show this year, the Poddies, Poddies, like podcasts, and he gave awards away to podcasts, and there were granted, obviously by the name of it, Classic Console Gamer News is very heavy on the classic console gaming, as you might have guessed. But he does enjoy pinball, and he does talk about some pinball. And one of the categories that he did this year was Best New Pinball Podcast. And Best New Pinball Podcast got out some folks out of my way to help me, propel myself to a win here. And I didn't have to fight against the Pinball Podcast or Spooky Pinball Podcast or any of those non-new pinball podcasts. I only had to go up against Pinball Soul. And I like Josh Blood, and I like Josh's podcast a lot. And we had apparently it was a fight to the finish between Coast2Coast Pinball and Pinball Soul. And this time, on this day, on this podcast about console gaming, Coast2Coast Pinball won Best New Pinball Podcast. So, yes. Now, the story does not end there. He also gives... By the way, one of his other categories is Best Podcast to Unsubscribe From. So we're really trying not to win that award next year. That is going to be my goal. And I don't want to win Best Microcomputer Podcast. That's another one I have no interest in. I don't even know what that means exactly. However, Ryan does give away the 2013 Podcast of the Year. And there are 4 nominees. So... you will have to listen to the end of the show to find out, A, was Coast2Coast Pinball in the 2013 Podcast of the Year nominees? And if we were, did we win Podcast of the Year? So that'll be later for the end of the show. You can check that out. But in any case, to Spitfire 1500, to Ryan... thank you. He emailed me really early on when the show started with some feedback, so I really appreciate you listening all the way through. to now, and I appreciate the award. Thank you, sir. I do appreciate it. If this episode seems a bit scattered as we go, and you think to yourself, wow, Nate's a little all over the place, you'd be correct. I am a little all over the place. It's an interesting time of the year, the first week of the year. You know, I went back to work after having 16 days off, and you know, we're a big sales team. We're all back in there, and things are changing, and it's a fresh start. Everybody starts back at zero, and it's just a weird time, the very beginning, because there's all this optimism and, you know, new roads out ahead of you. And yet at the same time, you're still sort of like, oh man, wearing the battle scars of the previous year. And I'm sorry, I just got an email from somebody very cool in our little hobby about a future podcast episode, and I looked down. So I'm scattered right now, so I apologize. I want to bring something up. I just watched a couple days ago episode 2 of the Papa TV Roadshow, and I know I talked about episode 1, and I will continue to talk about these as they go, because I love anything about our hobby in pinball, and I'm really jealous, actually, of the idea of just a big, long road trip that involves, you know, playing pinball and seeing great pinball places and whatnot. So I get emails from time to time from people saying how jealous they are that I travel and can get to play some pinball. But I, too, am very jealous of the folks on the Papa TV Roadshow, whose, I'm sorry, names I'm slipping on right now. But in any case, episode 2 was based around Lions Classic Pinball and Kevin Carroll in Lyons, Colorado, and I haven't been there, and I had not even really seen pictures of the place of Lyons Classic Pinball. So that in and of itself was very interesting, just getting to like kind of see the exterior, the interior, the surrounding areas, and all that. And it was really cool. Kevin seems like a good dude, and boy, there's that leap of faith moment where he quits his job as a plumber, which is generally a pretty steady, secure, you know, well-paying job, and opens up a pinball facility. And it's fun hearing him and his wife talk about, you know, how scary that first year was and all that good stuff. So I really enjoyed it. The audio on the show is still at times a little tough to hear. I commend these guys greatly for doing this show because, you know, Papa has all this great gameplay footage on their website, and their tutorials are just fantastic. And so the Roadshow thing, and I'm sure they're still sort of finding their way as they go, is kind of like, okay, I'll be really honest, brutally honest here. When I first watched the episode, I was a little bit... I wanted less of the traveling around Colorado and the fun, quirky, touristy stuff, and I wanted more just pinball. Like, let's talk about pinball some more. And I wanted to get on the podcast here and be like, yeah, you know, all this potential, and they should do more pinball, talk more pinball. And I kind of tempered that a little bit. I went back and actually watched some of it again, and they have so much of just the hardcore, like, you know, here's the game being played, and they do this awesome live coverage of the tournaments on Papa TV, which is one of their main focuses. I think having something that's a little slower speed and sort of like quasi-reality show, quasi-news show, quasi sort of, you know, travel show, I think that's okay. I think that's good. And they obviously have some good ideas, and I don't know if they always execute great. Sometimes I feel like maybe some of the technical side of the video and the editing is a little distracting from the story they're telling. Sometimes they'll be talking, and then they'll show a shot of some really cool game, some interesting, you know, gameplay footage where you're seeing a ball go around from like really cool like GoPro camera like down on the playfield views, and I almost forget to listen to what they're saying because I'm looking at the cool footage, and they're not talking about the footage. So it's sort of artsy in that way, and I think two watchings is good for me on that because I do dive right into to watching, you know, what game they're looking at. And Kevin has a Big Bang bar, and it's really great footage and getting to see the playfield art up close of a game I've never seen in person. So it gets a little distracting for me, I guess. Sometimes the interviews are filmed from across the room, and you see sort of the distant shot of them. And it's good in the sense that we aren't just seeing a camera on a tripod in a blank room with a few games behind them and talk. So it's really good that they are mixing it up, but I almost want a touch more of just the pinball talk and the sit down talk about the games and the places and the stories of how people got to where they are in pinball. I find myself wanting a little bit of that. They did a tech segment on this episode, and the tech segment I thought was an odd choice. They chose to show you how to set up a camera rig for recording pinball machines like they do for the tournaments. They showed how to order the parts, assemble the base stand, and then set up a camera rig, which, you know, for me personally is kind of cool because I have aspirations of maybe doing some video stuff at some point, and that kind of, I geek out on that a little bit, but I imagine most people who are just pinball players and pinball fans probably watched that and kind of scratched their head and said, well, tech segment, why don't you show me how to rebuild a flipper or change out a coil or show me how a coil's even built or something that's really pinball related, because it's a camera to record pinball on a tripod thing, but not really pinball related. Or show me how they do the great gameplay things, but even intermixing some of the the shot technique stuff into the roadshow might be great. If they're going to do cutaways back to Papa headquarters, like cutaway to Bowen Kearns on whatever game, on a certain game, like maybe he's going to show you how he hits a tricky center shot without draining straight down the middle, like Attack from Mars or Medieval Madness, where that's the main shot of the game, but you have to be careful because it is the center shot too. Something like that. Maybe a little bit of that. But am I being a little bit nitpicky? I think I am. And I guess I am because I'm excited that Papa's committed to doing this and doing this roadshow type thing. Am I a little jealous that I want to do a podcast, video podcast? Maybe. I can admit that. I would love to do something like that. I would hate to be the one on camera, personally, but that's okay too. I don't know. What do you guys think? Have you guys watched the Roadshow? One thing I will say is, it's over 30 minutes long, which you think, that's the length of a TV show. Well, it isn't. It isn't. A normal 30-minute TV show on television, commercial television, is really only 22 to 23 minutes long because you have 7 or 8 minutes of commercials. So, 30 plus minutes is actually quite a long time. So kudos to them for filling it. I think they might want to maybe cut down the personal trip stuff, maybe to like one type of thing per segment. They went and did like the photo booth, and there's like the river stuff. I don't know. Who am I? I'm just some guy talking into a microphone. But anyway, watch that. Support what they're doing. People are putting a lot of effort into the Papa TV Roadshow, and we should definitely watch that because there's not a lot of great high quality video stuff for us pinball enthusiasts. So I believe the best named pinball tournament in the world is here in Southern California, and it is called It Never Drains in Southern California. That's a great name, folks. It Never Drains in Southern California. You see what that implies? It implies the ball will never go down the hole. I kid. So anyway, It Never Drains in Southern California is coming up. I'm excited. It is being held January 17th, 18th, and 19th in San Dimas, California at the Chaparral Lanes. It is a Papa Circuit event. It is the largest Southern California pinball tournament on the calendar that I see this year. So it's basically open qualifying Friday and Saturday. Sunday will be the finals, match play finals. There's an A division and a B division. The top 16 players will run to the A division. The 17th through 24th ranked guys will be in the B division. If you're in the top 250 in the world rankings, you cannot be in the B division. There'll be a classics division also played on EMs and older solid state machines. Top 12 will advance to those finals. Those finals will start Sunday morning, the 19th, early at 9 a.m. There'll be 9 machines in the open field and then 7 in the classic fields. Confirmed right now to be at It Never Drains in Southern California. In the open division are Funhouse, Tron, Dirty Harry, High Roller Casino, NBA Fast Break, and Flintstones. So what this means is your host, who is planning on going and entering, has no shot. Those are all games I would say I am bad to poor at. I think my best game on there might be Funhouse, I guess. Yikes. So I'm going to get run over, but that's okay. I'm going for the fun of it. I'm going to beat Gene X Wong. That's what I'm going there to do. And I'm not doing it as a personal vendetta because he's on other podcasts or anything like that. It's a North-South thing. I'm here to defend the South. Or something. In the Classics division, currently, there are a bunch of pool-themed games. No, I'm just kidding. Joker Poker, Lady Luck, Laser Q, Stars, Paragon, and Fireball. So it's actually a pretty good mix of older games. I have not played some of those games. I've played Stars. There's actually a Stars on location here in San Diego. I've played Paragon, and I've played Fireball. I don't remember. The other ones I get confused with similar titled games. So I will go and play in the Classics too for the fun of it. Right? Fun of it. So I've not done a lot of pinball tournaments. I've actually done one, and it was a local tournament here in San Diego. I finished 5th in that tournament, so I will expect 5th or better in It Never Drains in Southern California. That's how that works, right? No? Probably not. But I'm going to go up. I don't know what days I'm going up yet for sure. If you're going to be there, I would love to meet you. Be sure and say hi. I'll be the fool who is tilting a bunch wearing the Coast to Coast Pinball t-shirt. Going to be good. There's going to be a Metallica limited edition there for a side tournament. That's also been confirmed. Should be fun. Should be a lot of people there. I think there's a bunch of folks from Northern California coming down to invade us here in our beautiful, warm January, spring-ish weather down here. So very excited. It's their first time at Chaparral Lanes. They claim there'll be more space. They're looking for scorekeepers. So if you're listening to this and you're going to be there and you'd like some free entries, I think for every hour you keep score for them, they give you 2 free entries, and then there's an extra hour Saturday night for all the scorekeepers to try and qualify, which is after everybody else has. So you sort of, you know what you need to do, which is very cool. So come and support that. Definitely, that's going to be, probably the biggest thing for us here in Southern California for sure. I wish there was more. I wish we had like a big show and not just a tournament. But we will take what we can get. That is a Papa tournament, and I would love to meet some of you guys out there, and hopefully we'll get some good stuff for the podcast and whatnot. So definitely, it never drains in Southern California. Let's actually take this moment and do a little look forward into 2014, at least the next few months, and kind of run down some of the shows here. Mostly U.S. I'm going to hit up just because I think like 85% of my listeners are U.S. and Canada based. So I apologize to my friends in Europe, Asia, Australia, etc. I'm going to mainly focus on what's happening in the U.S. Coming up in Virginia, February 21st, 22nd, 23rd, the Fairfax Pinball Open. That is going to be taking place, I believe, at the Best Western in Best Western Fairfax. And I'm looking at, I couldn't find a ton of info on this, but I'm looking at photos from last year. Looks like sort of medium-sized pinball show and tournament. Some really cool games in their photos from last year. There's a beautiful Flash Gordon. There's Baby Pac-Man set up. I see a Black Diamond mousing around. Maybe 100 games. I can't really tell. So if anybody has info on the Fairfax Pinball Open, please send that to me, and I'll be sure and give you a plug between now and February 22nd when that takes place. So anybody in the D.C., Baltimore, Virginia areas, get out to the 10th annual was last year. So this will be the 11th annual Fairfax Pinball Open. The 21st and 22nd in 2014. I think I said 22nd, 23rd. Those were last year's dates. So that's happening soon. There's a Florida Arcade and Pinball Expo, the 21st, 22nd, 23rd in Fort Lauderdale. Also has a tournament where you can earn world ranking points. So check that one out. Arcade and pinball, if that's your thing. We have the 10th annual Ohio Pinball Show, which takes place in a town of Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. See, I don't even know where that is. So I'm guessing Cuyahoga Falls is somewhere near Cleveland or Cincinnati, right? I don't know. It'll probably be near Columbus. As soon as I say Cleveland or Cincinnati, Cuyahoga Falls will definitely be near Columbus. And this is awesome podcasting here. Actually, it's near Akron, south of Cleveland. So yeah, Cleveland metro area, 10th annual Ohio Pinball Show. Go check that one out if you're in those Midwestern cold states right now. That's going to be February 27th, February 28th, and March 1st. They have over 100 games, free play. Looks like a pretty well-run show. $20 for per day, or $45 3-day pass. Lots of vendors will be there. Looks like a really nice show. I wish I could get out to that one, but Coin Taker will be there. Rotten Dog's going to be there. Some really good people. Papa will have a booth there. So check out the Ohio Pinball Show. The Louisville Arcade Expo, that was plugged on this show before, March 7th, 8th, and 9th. That's supposed to be a really good arcade and pinball show. That's a Papa circuit tournament there, I believe. So check that one out. That's at the Triple Crown Pavilion at the Ramada Plaza in Louisville, Kentucky. On March 7th, 8th, and 9th. Same pricing there, $20 a day or $45 for the weekend. So that's definitely one to check out. And then as we move farther on, we get, the Texas Pinball Festival is a big one at the end of March. I'm doing my best to get out to that. It's in Frisco, Texas, Dallas area. And then Pinburg, of course, is also that same weekend. So I don't know how I'm going to manage that. That's a tough weekend. That happens a couple times this year where the Texas Pinball Festival, Pinburg are on the same weekend. And then later, man, I had an email from someone in the Phoenix area, my old stomping grounds, asking me if I was coming out to ZapCon, which is an arcade and pinball convention in Phoenix, April 12th and 13th. The problem with those dates is Rocky Mountain Pinball Showdown, April 11th, 12th, and 13th, and the Midwest Gaming Classic, April 12th and 13th. So that's just a brutal weekend of if somebody's traveling trying to go see pinball shows. Granted, they're spread across the country, and there's not many fools like me who might want to go to a bunch of them. But that's just a tough weekend. So we'll kind of look forward to those as we go. And if anybody out there is going or works with them, runs them, knows something, feel free and shoot me an email at coast2coastpinball gmail.com. And let me know anything you'd like to know about it. Be glad to plug, glad to promote. Because I think those shows are great. They're important. They need to happen. And look forward to helping out as we go on.
Check the email.
Ah, yes, the email bag. Sort of the bane of my existence during the holidays. I was having really trouble catching up and getting back to everybody. So if I didn't get back to you, I tried. I think I'm pretty caught up with email. I try and reply to everybody. I did pick some emails to go through on the show, some stuff that I thought was interesting, pertinent, or just well written. This one was just kind of timely. The subject line got my attention right away because it is just "dude" in capital letters with an exclamation point. Dude. Any chance you'll ever do a video podcast? I could see it now. Coast to Coast Pinball TV. Thanks a lot, Than. Well, Than, maybe. What would I do, though? I mean, I do this podcast in my office, surrounded by some pinball machines, in front of a couple computers, with some microphones, and sometimes a cat crawling between my feet. If I were going to do something with video, it would need to be location-based, I think. I would certainly never just put a video camera up and me chatting and talking. I think that would be very dull and boring. So I would have to, maybe some specials for the website. I've thought about it. I have thought about it, but I appreciate the suggestion /email /question. Thank you for listening, Than. Let's see. Todd wrote me, your modern pinball New York City trip many moons ago piqued my curiosity about the location, and it just so happened our family went to New York City for 3 days this past weekend. My wife and kids seem to put up with my pinball interests, but they are far from enthusiasts, so I knew making Modern Pinball a family destination would be a stretch. Luckily, my wife took the kids skating with a relative during an afternoon. I had some time to slip away for the silver ball. First off, the location is very cool, and as you know, the machine lineup is epic. And it's safe to say I had only ever played about a quarter of them, so I had my work cut out for me. I played for a solid 2.5 hours. 3 machines really stuck out for me: Monster Bash, Star Trek, Wizard of Oz. These are the 3 machines that ended up getting most of my attention for the last hour. Of the 3, Monster Bash was my favorite, although I left wondering about the staying power of that game as I popped off 130 million and nearly got my initials up on the leaderboard after just my 3rd game. Well, you're a good player then, because I don't usually score that high on that game. Very good, Todd. He also said Star Trek's an excellent game. Loved the light show and the speed. Like most Sterns, its build quality feels just a tad underwhelming, but better than I expected. I agree with that. I think Star Trek does feel good. Better than some. I thought Metallica and Star Trek were pretty good, especially in comparison to playing an Avengers recently that just has this kind of awful, flimsiness to it that a lot of people have referenced. But I don't think Star Trek's that bad, although when you go from some older Williams games then to a Star Trek, you can feel it. And honestly, Wizard of Oz, pretty great build quality, feels solid. So, oddly, I was able to do a flipper catch on about 5 balls on that machine. I've probably pulled that off only once or twice ever before that. Have you experienced that on Star Trek or on other Sterns? As far as flipper catching go, I practice that at home a lot, just for the fun of it. And I don't know if Todd has games at home or not, but having games at home, you will just kind of develop some of those skills, because it doesn't matter if you miss. You didn't pay for it. So, yeah, I can do flipper catches. When I went to the new urethane flipper rubbers, I noticed it was easier. And that's been a complaint for some and a bonus for others. I think catching's easier with the super bands. I did have a breakage of a Saturn ring, which was unfortunate. It was on the upper left flipper on my Judge Dredd. I just walked in one morning and the rubber was broken. It was on like a red color, I believe. So far Super Band's totally good, and one breakage on a Saturn ring. So I don't know if that means anything to anybody. Back to Monster Bash. Todd says, how much fun is that game? I love the flow of the ball, the call-outs, the DMD graphics, not to mention the lighthearted toys. Got me thinking about how I could get one into my home, or better stated, how difficult would it be to find one at a reasonable price? Good luck with that. That game, I think we could see a day now that Medieval Madness is being rebuilt, and maybe Attack from Mars could be also rebuilt. I think Monster Bash could become that game that starts going for $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 pretty regularly. I see them already going up close to 10. Monster Bash is special. It's a special game with amazing voice work, fun shots, great DMD. It really has the whole deal. Couple games were out of order, he said. Bram Stoker's Dracula and Junkyard, and then some were severely unleveled, including Cactus Canyon. I had the same problem at Modern Pinball. I had some unleveled machines. So, the floor in that building, it's old New York City type construction, and it's just not a level floor. And I know they talked about it that night, about having to put some work into it. So hopefully they'll get that all dialed in. I will be back in New York City in a few weeks, so I will be going back for sure and spending some time at Modern Pinball, which is one of the great collections right now on the East Coast to go play. So anyway, thank you, Todd from Maryland. I appreciate it very much. Thanks for listening. Joe, mega podcast contributor and listener Joe, who is a regular on our show via email and a regular on some other podcasts, wrote me a giant 2 blocks of text, which I'm staring at now and all of a sudden frightened at. But I'm going to try here. Predictions for 2014. I'm not sure if prices are really going to go down. I'd like to think so, but even if that is the trend, more people making pinballs, only so much cash, only so much room in the basements, I still think it's going to take well over a year before you start to see the effect. It's sort of like gas. Even if there's a major price drop, say 30 cents, it'll be weeks before you see that reflected at your local pump. I pulled Joe's email out because I want to talk about pricing of pinballs a little bit today. He actually references that there's some people with really high price games still selling on Craigslist, really high. He has like a beat up He says a beat up No Fear for $3,300 and a beat up World Cup Soccer for about the same. And yeah, there are people on Craigslist. Like, we got the guy in San Diego with the Nightmare on Elm Street that he's had at $2,900 on eBay, I believe. I might be quoting that wrong. He's actually lowered it recently for months and months and months and months and months, and he's just not going to get that. But if you go and do a little search through eBay and actually search for completed games in auctions, it gives you some very interesting results. And this is going to be a great time for me to bring back a segment that we just started recently called
What's for Sale in Your Area?
But instead of what's for sale in your area with a bad British accent, it's what's sold in your area. So I did some research because I wanted to look at prices. I wanted to see what's going on. And I will say this about the end of the year. It's a great time to buy a pinball machine because there's some people who need to get rid of stuff. So I have some notes here on, specifically, I went to eBay and I only looked at games that sold. So these are actually completed auctions that were auctions, not buy it nows. Only ones that had either low reserves or no reserves and then got bids and were auctions. So I picked a few out, including World Cup Soccer, which Joe mentioned. A World Cup Soccer game in the Weymouth, Boston area, like South Shore, Boston, sold in the last couple weeks on eBay. And I only picked clean games, clean to good games. You know, good games that didn't need a lot of work. That, you know, you can quickly find stuff where it's like, yeah, here's a, you know, Batman Forever with no DMD. You know, when you know that's a $500 repair on that DMD. But no, I picked games that were complete. The seller claimed that everything worked, or mostly, you know, pretty clean games. World Cup Soccer sold, and this was the final bid, the selling price. South Boston, $1,624. Pretty clean, according to the pictures I saw. So that's low. I think that's low. That game was going for $2,000 last year. It just was. Some other things that I thought were sort of interesting. Here's an interesting one, of course. In Jefferson, Indiana, recently, there was a Medieval Madness, a very, very pristine, restored, immaculate is the word used in the description, clear-coated, fully LED'd Medieval Madness that went on auction on eBay. Final price on this, and this should be sort of interesting with what's going on with Medieval Madness right now, final price on that game was $11,215. This game was probably $15,000 last year at this time, or somewhere in between there. But still, you know, this game is immaculate. It's not brand new, and it sold for $3,000 more than the brand new one. I looked at some of the later Stern games too, just to kind of gauge pricing on what stuff's actually selling for. Now, granted, these are area dependent, and it can change. And I notice, I don't know, I notice that there's a few areas in the country where there's a lot of games, and the price seems to be just a little bit lower. Southern California is not one of those areas typically, so I don't really reap those rewards. Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, Pirates of the Caribbean. Really good looking game, sold for $3,999, so $4,000 for Pirates of the Caribbean. The average price last year, according to Boston Pinball eBay rankings on a Pirates of the Caribbean on eBay across the country, was over $5,000, $5,100. So this game sold for $1,000 less, $1,100 less than the average of what it was selling, which points to prices being down. Spider-Man, there was a Spider-Man that sold in Troy, Michigan for $4,250. That's cheaper than I've seen one of those go for around here recently. Generally, those have been between $500 and $6,500. The average on those has been really high, but I think that's because there was a few of the black Spider-Mans that sold that drove that price up, so I don't want to use that average number, but interesting nonetheless. Also in NASCAR in Philadelphia, you know, big city, a lot of pinball around that area through that stretch. Ended on January 6th, so it was yesterday. $2,200. Really clean game, really nice NASCAR game. NASCAR tends to, you know, get a decent price because people that buy that game tend to be, you know, pretty fanatical about the theme. So, $2,200 for a NASCAR, it's not bad. Eugene, Oregon, Whodunit. This price actually surprised me a little bit. $2,250. I think Whodunit's one of those games that a lot of people think really highly of, and then it gets flipped a lot because it sort of, you play it enough times, you're sort of done with it. So I was kind of surprised at $22.50. But you know, the Portland, Eugene area, that's a good pinball place. That's probably a game that somebody really wanted. So that's a pretty good price on that. And then I saw a Bad Cats game that started out with a $1,000 reserve. Was the first bid on that game, and it ended up selling in Charlotte, North Carolina for $1,225 for a Bad Cats game. So that's just some interesting stuff to ponder, like what stuff's selling for. I don't know if that's interesting to you or not, but I think it's fun to see what stuff's selling for around the country. I wish we could ship pinball machines for less than $400 around this country. It'd really open up what you could buy, wouldn't it? So, you know, let me know what you're buying. If you got something new or you're pricing something out, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. That is going to wrap up episode 55 of Coast to Coast Pinball. Appreciate all the emails and blog comments, Facebook likes, and Twitter following. Thank you very much for all of that. It's going really well. We still have t-shirts available. I have a few black shirts available in just about every size. Very, very limited. I think I only have some medium of the heather green shirts. I plan on having a new shirt in the not too distant future. If you'd like to email me at coasttocoastpinball@gmail.com. If you'd like to buy a shirt, they are $18 in the U.S. shipped. You can PayPal me that money at the same email address. If you're out of the country, just email me and we'll figure something out. I've kind of dialed in what it's ended up costing me to ship shirts to many corners of this great planet, so we'll figure that out. Next episode, I believe, I'm going to call my shot here, and I usually don't do this because things fall through, but I believe we'll have an interview next episode with a much better player than myself, someone who's involved in pinball in a big way, and that looks to be a Thursday night of this week recording. So I'm looking forward to that. It's an interview I've been wanting to do for a long time, so I look forward to bringing that one to you. Until next time, let's see if I won Podcast of the Year.
It is time to announce the winner for the Podcast of the Year, the Golden Potty.
All right, folks, note that this award is called the Golden Potty, which, yes, is a ridiculous name, but makes me want to win it even more.
Now, last year, Now You're Playing with Podcasts was the winner.
Did he just say, Now You're Playing with Podcasts was the winner? Is that real? I don't understand. Anyway.
They literally won at the very last minute. That's how good the podcast was. As you know, I've completely made up all of the nominees and the winners and the losers in this whole award ceremony.
If by made up he means voted on it all himself, okay, but you did not make up me. I'm real. Coast to Coast Pinball. We're real, man.
But I did a little searching. I did a little digging. See who's won the hearts and the minds of the retro gaming podcast community.
All right, so with that, clearly now I know we have to be at least nominated. I mean, if anybody won the hearts and the minds of the retro gaming podcast community, it's yours truly, right?
Who keeps getting talked about over and over again? Who keeps getting mentioned? Who keeps getting recommended that you listen to this podcast?
My girlfriend listens to my podcast. Sometimes. Uh-oh. This does not bode well.
Well, let us find out. For the winner for Podcast of the Year, and the nominees are the Intellivisionaires.
The what?
Retro Game Squad.
Yeah.
Atari 2600 Game by Game Podcast.
Atari what?
And a
Come on.
controversial entry.
Yeah?
Coast to Coast Pinball.
Controversial? What is controversial about us and me and the podcast? Nothing. Controversial? Yes, nominated. We can't lose this, right? There's no way we lose this. We've got this. All right, here we go.
And the winner is...
something leads me to believe that that opening of the envelope sound is not real.
Atari 2600 Game by Game podcast.
I'm sorry, what did you say? What? The Atari 2600 Game by Game podcast? One game of the podcast of the year and not... What? How dare you? Ryan, I'm ashamed. I'm just kidding.
And accepting his award, Ferg.
Hey, this is Ferg, the host of the Atari 2600 Game by Game podcast. I just want to say thank you for voting my show the 2000...
Blah, 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 blah. Ferg wins. Fine. Good job, Ferg. I hope you continue your Game by Game podcast. But what happens when you run out of games? Atari 2600 Game by Game, you will run out eventually. And then you know what's going to happen? I'll be here waiting, and I will win. I will have that golden potty. If it's the last thing that I do, I will have the golden potty. Ferg. You know what? I'm so mad about this. No funny ending to the podcast for you guys. None of it.